Channel, Ty Glover, Think Different Nation. A number of people have asked me, so what is Think Different Nation? What is it about? What do you do? What's your intention? And I'd say the first thing is Think Different Nation really is an intention. It's an intention of focused adaptation because I recognize something. I recognize one thing. We're the most adaptive species that has ever existed on the face of this planet. I mean, we've conquered all four corners of this world itself, and we've taken off and gone from this planet into outer space. So we've been able to span the boundaries of this particular planet. We're sharp. We adapt. We adjust. We accommodate to the situations which we find ourselves in. But here's the situation. We're the first culture, the first civilization to ever recognize the fact that we can, underline that, we will go extinct if we don't course correct. So Think Different Nation is about focused adaptation to accommodate the situation in which we find ourselves in, to adapt, to adjust, and to better ourselves so we can think better going forward. So that's what Think Different Nation is. So now what do I do as far as helping people is concerned? I help creators connect more dots. Now, Steve Jobs, he used to say, you can't connect the dots by looking forward, you have to look backwards. Because that's where the connections occur. That's where your experiences are, and that's where you connect those different experiences with certain assumptions that you make about it. Well, I help people to look back, to connect more dots. And what I do within that process is I teach them, show them how, give them a different orientation from which they can think differently. They can look at their environment in a completely different way. The second thing that they do from the standpoint of that experience is they also learn to scale. They learn to develop a sense, or rather a bigger sense, of what is possible based on what they learn in going through my training. So now, how do I help people to think, to be more creative, to go to that next level? I use the process of neuro-linguistics programming with a combination of what I call neuro-creative programming in a world-building scenario to help people to get outside of their way from the standpoint of understanding or at least postulating what is possible. Now, first of all, neuro-linguistics programming, you may be familiar with it. It was created by the gentleman by the name of Richard Bandler, and I believe one other person, but this was started back in 1979, and the whole thought process is, check out this way. We all communicate in a specific way. In other words, if I'm communicating with you, then the first thing that I'm doing to actually create the communication is I have to encode a message, which means I have to select specific words based on my specific understanding of those specific words. Plus, I have to select a certain type of physical appearance and body language to be able to communicate and encode that message and send that message to you, hoping that you're going to be able to understand the message that you're receiving it. That's called decoding it, taking it, understanding it, translating it into words, into messages that you understand, and then you're interpreting what you heard, and then you're communicating backwards to me, another message that you want me to know. And I've got to take yours, decode your message now, and I've got to come up with that understanding, the understanding hopefully that you intended on me to gather from it. And then I've got to take that understanding and create a new message, encode something for you, or at least my reply back. So that's a part of neuro-linguistics programming. Neuro-linguistics programming, however, gets further into the understanding of the intention of the words, potentially that you had selected. What was the message behind it? What was the meaning? Looking at body language, also looking at a number of other factors to be able to determine what your intention is, what your thought is, where are you at within your head, so that I therefore can be able to potentially use that message and use your communication of that message in a way that's favorable for me, and vice versa. Now, when you bring in neuro-linguistics programming, then you're understanding that everything is within the 5 basic senses. And the way I'm taking in information, I'm using those 5 basic senses to gather an understanding of what's going on around me. Well, when you introduce world building to that scenario, then you've got a completely new game. You've got a completely new opportunity. So at the end of my program, then what do you walk away with? Well, the first thing is you walk away with the importance of the understanding of experiences and all the different experiences that you have around you throughout the course of your life, being able to determine which factors or which, I say, asymmetrical moments you need to focus in on and capture information about it, because that's how we learn processes that we incorporate them into other ideas and thoughts that we have. So you'll understand the importance of experiences. The next thing you'll do is you'll be able to understand better the creative process. How does it work? I mean, principle of cause and effect and the principle of vibration. Everything changes, everything moves, vibration, cause and effect, There is a process for everything. So when you start to understand the process of being creative, how does the creative mind work, then you can start to better understand how do you construct your own creative processes and therefore focus in on that which you want to focus in on. So that's another thing you'll learn coming out of my program. Next, how to leverage those experiences to align them with trends. So I spoke of Daniel Burrus in one of my other podcasts, but Daniel Burrus is a technology futurist. He does speaking around the world, speaking about, in fact, trends that are occurring within every marketplace. Trends that are technological trends, trends that are sociological trends, cultural trends, things that are taking place from a trend standpoint, and he calls them hard trends, which means they will definitely happen, such as the demise of the baby boomers and then the millennials, or rather the Generation X's and so forth. Soft trends, things that may take place, but they can be adjusted, and therefore, so that they don't take place. Those are the soft ones. Now, within this understanding that he has, and having spoken to companies all around the world, he has an understanding of those trends and where things are going. But when you can start to do world building, that is taking that proverbial idea of, let's say, for example, science fiction writers. Science fiction writers are great from the standpoint of their ability to be able to ideate or dream possibilities that could have never been dreamed of from the standpoint of what is possible to the average scientist. For example, Russian scientist Konstantin Tesloki, and I pronounce it wrong incorrectly, my apologies, but he actually studied Jules Verne when he was trying to understand about space science and about how do you actually go, in other words, creating the cosmonaut environment within Russia and stuff. He had to envision outside of his own sphere of knowledge and influence because he couldn't extrapolate possibilities outside of what he was aware of. That's where you go to understand what is possible. Science fiction, they theorize outside the box in theory. You can also go to Wernher von Braun, who was also someone who's very influential in the space program right here in the US. He also went to H.G. Wells to be able to understand possibilities, as well as Jules Verne. Because again, if you're aligned with thinking in a particular way, sometimes you can't get out of your own way. And therefore, exploring outside of your space, such as science fiction, it can allow you to develop bigger ideas. Same thing with creativity. If you start to leverage world-building activities and world-building processes, for example, thinking about, I want to build a fantasy world. Well, in this situation, you're not building a fantasy world, you're building a product or service. Or what if the world has this unusual fantasy of races? Well, what if the world has this incredible product or service that accommodates all these different challenges? What's the next thing? You build your world down. You can include different types of ideas from the standpoint of what you'd like it to be able to do, how it's going to impact society overall, how it's going to correct problems that you know to exist within the world from the standpoint of, we just talked about them, we need to change the way we're currently doing our lives, currently doing business. But it allows you to be able to ideate around those things to create a vision that may not be possible today. But we're not into today. We've been focusing on today for such a long period of time. We're focusing on tomorrow. So by creating scenarios of possibilities, then you can start working in those scenarios. And that's where world building works so well with neural creative programming as well. Not neurolinguistics programming, which we've already got it set, our 5 basic senses and how we interact within the world, or at least within people, our interactions, but this moves into the neural creative programming because now it specifically talks about the possibilities that you're creating within your world. If you're outlining a world that you would like to exist and you can start focusing on the creative aspects of how do you manifest that world, then it allows you a target to start working for. And nothing can be outside of the question. There's nothing off limits when it comes to looking at a world building exercise and thinking creatively. Because it's also in direct alignment with alchemy and the ability to be able to manifest an idea or a vision based on mental alchemy, meaning focused attention in a particular direction. If you're able to outline where you want to be from the standpoint of the world that you're building, the products, the services, the life that you'd like to live is all part of the whole game, then you can start moving in that direction mentally. And what follows after is action. What follows after is materialization of that which you seek. So thank you for coming back to the channel. Ty Glover, truly appreciate you. Please subscribe and also check out my website at thinkdifferentnation.com because it talks to you more about where does creativity come from and how can you actually become more creative by leveraging tools. Tools, I'll be sharing that with you in the next podcast or the next blog post, next YouTube channel I post, but also the technology itself. The technology is an enabler because again, if we're talking about experiences, then we need to be able to capture the significant experiences in our lives. And we need to be able to organize those experiences so they're readily accessible. And we need to be able to put them in a position where we can connect them to other experiences that we're having in a linear format, meaning across time. Now, we've got a whole lot of project management solutions, the Trellos, the Asanas, and so forth, but they don't really hit the mark when it comes to ideation and capturing those thoughts, those ideas. So again, thank you for coming to my channel. Think Different Nation, and Ty Glover. Cheers.